Did you know what were the top 10 oldest ancient civilizations that have ever existed? In the course of human evolution, the practice of living in a group with mutual understanding and dependency has become a very useful and practical lifestyle. And from small, isolated groups, larger communities have formed. For now, let's talk about some of the oldest civilizations to have ever existed in the world. We are talking about the civilizations that we know existed for real. 10. The Incan Civilization. The Incan Empire was the largest empire in South America. This civilization flourished in the areas of present-day Ecuador, Peru, and Chile, and had its administrative, military, and political center at Cusco, which lies in modern-day Peru. The Incas were devout followers of the sun god Inti. The first Incan emperor, Pachacuti, transformed the capital from a modest village into a great city. When the king died, his son would get all the power, but his wealth would be distributed among his other relatives, who in return would preserve his mummy and maintain his political influence. This led to a significant rise in the power of the Incas, who went on to become great builders, constructing fortresses and sites like Machu Picchu and the city of Cusco that still stand to this day. 9. The Aztec Civilization. The Aztecs came onto the scene around the 1200s and early 1300s. The people in present-day Mexico lived in three big rival cities: Tenochtitlan, Texcoco, and Tlacopan. Around 1325, these rivals created an alliance, and the new state came to dominate the Valley of Mexico. Back then, the people preferred the name Mexica to Aztecs. In the early 1500s, the Spanish arrived. This led to a huge battle between the Incas and the Spanish conquistadors and the native allies they had assembled, led by the famous Hernan Cortés in 1521. 8. The Roman Civilization. Early Rome was governed by kings, but after only 7 of them had ruled, the people took control over their own city and ruled themselves. They introduced a council known as the Senate, which ruled over them. From this point, Rome was referred to as the Roman Republic. Rome also saw the rise and fall of some of the greatest leaders in human history, like Julius Caesar, Trajan, and Augustus. But eventually, the empire became so vast that it was simply not possible to bring it under a single rule. 7. The Persian Civilization. Before they created such a vast empire, Persia was divided. But then Cyrus the Great came into power and unified the entire Persian kingdom before going on to conquer ancient Babylon, Media, Lydia, and Egypt. In fact, his conquest was so rapid that by the end of 533 BC, he had already invaded India, far in the east. Even after Cyrus's death, his descendants continued this ruthless expansion, and even fought in the now legendary battle with the brave Spartans. 6. The Ancient Greek Civilization. The history of this civilization is spread over such a long period of time that historians have divided it into different periods, the most popular of them being the Archaic, Classical, and Hellenistic periods. They laid the foundations for modern geometry, biology, and physics. Among other things, the Greeks invented the ancient Olympics and formed the concept of democracy in the Senate. 5. The Chinese Civilization. The Yellow River Civilization is said to be the beginning of the entire Chinese civilization, as this is where the earliest dynasties were based. It was around 2700 BC that the legendary Yellow Emperor began his rule, which later led to the birth of many dynasties that ruled mainland China. From then on, there were a number of dynasties that held control during different periods of time until the end of the Qing dynasty in 1912 AD with the Xinhai Revolution. By this time, however, the Chinese had given the world some of its most useful inventions and products such as gunpowder, paper, and many more. 4. The Maya Civilization. The ancient Maya civilization flourished in Central America from about 2600 BC and has been much talked about because of the calendar it introduced. The ancient Mayans were culturally rich compared to many of their contemporary civilizations, and the Mayans and Aztecs built pyramids, many larger than those in Egypt. Maya civilization continued until 1697 when the Spanish conquered Nochpatan, the last independent city-state. 3. The Ancient Egyptian Civilization. The civilization coalesced around 3150 BC with the political unification of Upper and Lower Egypt under the first pharaoh. Ancient Egypt gave us the pyramids, the mummies that preserve the ancient pharaohs to this day, hieroglyphics, and much more. Ancient Egypt reached its pinnacle during the New Kingdom when pharaohs like Ramses the Great ruled with such authority that another contemporary civilization, the Nubians, also came under Egyptian rule. 2. The Indus Valley Civilization. This civilization flourished in areas extending from northeast Afghanistan to Pakistan and northwest India. Along with ancient Egypt and Mesopotamia, it was one of 3 early civilizations of the ancient world, and of the 3, it was the most widespread, covering an area of 1 million kilometers. Also known as the Harappan Civilization and the Mohenjo-Daro Civilization, named after the excavation sites where the remains of the civilization were found. The peak phase of this civilization is said to have lasted from 2600 BC to around 1900 BC. 1. The Mesopotamian Civilization. The timeline of ancient Mesopotamia is usually from around 3300 BC to 750 BC. Mesopotamia is generally credited as being the first place where civilized society truly began to take shape. It was somewhere around 8000 BC that people developed the idea of agriculture and slowly started to domesticate animals for both food and to assist in farming. People had already been creating art well before the Mesopotamians, but this was part of human culture, not human civilization. Did you enjoy this video? Hit that like button and subscribe for more historical content.